officially call to order the meeting of the River Ridge Development Authority. Today is May 20th, 2024.
And concerning water operations, Mark and I met with Jim Smith, who is the primary employee with Louisville Water Company that manages the treatment plant, and has been doing so since day one with us, and also the Louisville Water Company's president last week. And we had some detailed discussions about the short-term projects that we have going on now, and long-term projects in our coordination with the state of Indiana on providing the water system. Potential projects for June, we'll read those. And we do have our special event schedule for May 31st, and hope everyone can be here. We already have all those expenses covered.
Those were covered through sponsorships, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Acey. Mr. Hildebrand, Corporate Strategy and External Affairs.
I want to handle external affairs, by the way. That's when.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I read the wrong line. Engineering and operations.
I can talk about it if you want.
No, it's fine.
Good.
I need your contacts. You can blame it on that. I'm trying to get used to these multifocal ones.
Oh, I've got the same.
Blame it
thing,
on
so,
me.
yeah.
My apologies.
No worries at all. So obviously we talked, and I think the board's aware of this, we're doing things a little bit different, and I'm gonna handle kind of all of the operations, just a quick overview of some of the things. Got with all, the folks that work in my department and got some high points for that. So questions, obviously, at the end, if on any of those reports, if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them, and if not, we can get input from the folks that are doing that work. So going through quickly, from my side, a couple things I'm working on. The water treatment plant progress, I just wanted to give an update on that. It is looking like we're going to be finished probably in the middle part of June finally on that project, about 2 years after the original completion date. They are wrapping up this week a lot of the work at the water treatment plant. And the other part of it is we've been doing coordination between our water main project, which, you've seen water pipes sitting out here and some of the work going on, but the connection to the water treatment plant discharge pipe is happening this week as well. And then they're gonna move up to the water booster pump station to do a few things to make the system all work together from a operations standpoint. And then just to give you a feel for, I've been working with Eric quite a bit in these last couple of months on plan review. It's been very, very busy, including really the last, 3 weeks or so. And I put together this list this morning, and I've already added one, but so right now we have 8 private development sites that are under review here with construction plans, and then 3 River Ridge projects that we're looking at. We've got one, our Project Slugger Access Road, which is right outside the window here. It's an obligation we have with Meta to bring a road to their property. That will be open, the bid will be advertised on Wednesday this week. So we've been very busy. Eric's been a great help to me in taking a little bit of that load off of my shoulders and at least doing an initial review before I get into it for a final review. So very busy with that, and along with it, Tom's had probably 4 or 5 different development plans that he's approved since the last board meeting. So we have a lot of activity, mostly on our smaller sites, our under 20-acre sites that we're working on. But it also includes we're in review with Canadian Solar on development plan and site construction plans right now as well. So and Meta, we have fully approved all of their mass grading and then phase 1. Going into Tom's work, Senior Director of Projects and Planning on the environmental side, working on the jurisdictional determination on the northern end, the Charlestown end of River Ridge. We expect it to be done in the mid to late summer this year. And then also in June, he's going to have an on-site meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services about bat habitat and possible mitigation sites at River Ridge. Equipment, there's a resolution later in this board meeting for a mulch spreader. If you've driven around the Charlestown end, you'll see all our ant hills that we have up there, but it's actually mulch piled up. We were able to, with the help of our outside guys and visits the farm machinery show over in Louisville, got a retrofitted manure spreader that does an outstanding job of spreading mulch out. So it's become a quicker operation and a better end product operation for us. So you'll see that, it will become that for us, and you'll see that resolution later. Marketing 20 RFIs, we did talk about that a little bit in executive session. Slowed down a little bit from the state of Indiana Economic Development Corporation, but has picked up with some of our brokers and other folks that we've been marketing with here on site. Demolition change order will be presented for our phase 7 demolition. It was part of the original project for the contractor to do some additional studies on hazardous materials, and they did find a few more, so that's what that will have, and Tom will present that later on, as well as a development standards resolution. We have updated those once again. We did it about a little less than a year ago, but we are continuing to kind of go through those and make sure that they work for us and they work for the developers that are coming on site. Director of Construction GIS, Michael, a few of the projects that we have going on, if you've driven around, you've seen we're starting to get some additional bus stop shelters in place. So that project is moving along well and will be finished this summer. South Water Main, I spoke of it earlier a little bit. We had a road closure for southbound New Patrol Road that we have gotten through that time frame and opened the road back up, and everything's moving ahead of schedule on that project, which is supposed to be completed before the end of this year. Rock crushing, you can look right outside the window. That project is complete. We plan to use all that material on the road project right next door to it, so that was the reason we did that. So it's going to be very efficient for the use of that and reusing that material. Jim Lewis Phase 1 and Penny Martin Access Road, both of those subgrade stabilization has occurred and should be seeing paving operations up there very soon. Same thing for Jim Lewis Phase 2. As far as Eric, the engineer project manager, we will have a resolution later in the board meeting for the Jim Lewis intersection improvements, which is a green T intersection, is a fully signalized, and I'd be happy to explain it to anybody if they're interested, but it is a full traffic signal, but the one side is not affected by that traffic signal. We'll have left-hand turn movements in and out that are controlled by a signal, and that's at Jim Lewis right there by DA Inc. on the far end, north end of River Ridge. Slugger Access Road, I mentioned it, we're getting that thing out to bid this week, and he also mentioned all the site construction plans that we've been reviewing over the last month or so. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or direct any questions to the rest of the operations staff.
Do we have a timeline yet on the intersection, the completion of the intersection improvement at Miami Trail as well as the Jim Lewis, like how those go?
Yeah, so Jim Lewis, when we were going through the bid process on the Jim Lewis project, we got feedback back from contractors that saying that our signal time frame was way too fast. So we then changed the deadline to have all the pavement work done this year. And then the signal is, I believe, June 30th of next year, just because of getting signal equipment. So that one will be done by the middle of about a year from now. It's been several weeks since I've asked about the Miami Trail, but the last that I knew about that one is we were still waiting on final approval from CSX on the communications between the traffic signal and the railroad crossing there. I think they're getting pretty close to having all the turn lanes done, but they're just waiting for CSX to approve the final signal plans.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hilton?
For the benefit of the record, would you describe the status of the water main project and road closures?
Yes, so yeah, the road closure is, we had a 40-day road closure that was from Bluff Ridge Road down to Paul Garrett Avenue, and actually I went back and looked. We closed it on April 3rd and we opened it on May 8th, which was about 5 days prior to what we planned for. Then there was a second road closure from Bluff Ridge to Noblewood. It was supposed to be 10 days. The contractor decided to just work on one side of the road and never close the road. So they're getting pretty close. If they haven't, I haven't been out there this week yet, or late last week, but getting pretty close to getting outside of the road there. And then they're gonna plan on doing the testing on the water main, and then pave all the way down to, all the way down to Paul Garrett Avenue. The plan is, at the end of the project, they're gonna come back in, they're gonna completely mill and resurface the entire width of the roads that we disturbed, even though we're only going on one side of the road. I just thought it was the right thing to do for, the Kendra Road, and then of course our road back over here as well. It just ends up being a better project that way. So I mentioned it earlier, but we are, in the overall project schedule, we are ahead of schedule right now, and should be done sooner than, I think, the November 30th completion date.
And they are doing a good job of working with people out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just like to comment to, appreciate, the help of Mr. Meyer relative to community relations and discussing with the homeowners association and some of the leadership in the town to help, mitigate any conflicts.
Excellent.
I appreciate that as well, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Now, we can correct call, corporate strategy and external affairs with Ms. Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark could have done a much better job at corporate strategy and external affairs than I could do at engineering and operations. Included in your packet is a report of some of the activities. I'll just draw your attention to a couple under corporate strategy. I submitted this report to Renee, and at the time, Thursday morning, we were expecting to have up to 7 announcements in between now and the end of, or the middle of July. We actually had one Thursday afternoon, so that number needs to turn to 6, because hopefully you saw that 1440 Foods is taking down the space formerly occupied by Enjoy Life. So thanks to our friends at American Place, we are excited to see that building filled, about a $60 million investment, new jobs, and they will be having an event Wednesday to celebrate. Duke Energy awarded River Ridge Development Authority a grant to help us look at a new website. As we've talked since the last website was done, we've had so much change here at River Ridge, and really we need to look at a 2-phase process. This Duke grant will help us with mapping out a new website so that we can do a lot of the thought process behind creating a new website before we get into the design work, the creative side of the website. So looking forward to kicking off that next week. Jerry stole my thunder in introducing Abby Pruitt. She's been our fabulous social media and graphic arts intern. She's with us for 12 weeks, and she's working on social media posts and creating graphics behind them, so please keep an eye on what's new there. She's recreating and updating marketing materials, exploring new software options, preparing presentations for external audiences, and of course assisting with the big celebration plan. So Abby, welcome, glad you're here. Under external affairs, I did present, with Abby's help, to the CASI annual meeting, the Community Action of Southern Indiana group, and also participated in local events with Engage Indiana. That's the group that's owned by IBJ Media out of Indianapolis, and Mayor Hodges was in both of those meetings, so thank you for being there to support and participate. Been working with the public and concerns from the public, including meeting with neighbors about shared fence lines and concerns about Canadian solar. Thank you ladies for being here today. And then I really want to, although she hates the attention, I think it's important to note that Billy Ann was selected by Louisville Business First on the list of 2024 Best in Finance in the metro area. So congratulations, Billy Ann. We will officially celebrate her on June 18th. John Webb from Ivy Tech is here. I have just a couple of items to point out. She's identified needs for 3 River Ridge located companies and distributed details on Ivy Tech's short-term pharmaceutical technician certification program. So we're seeing some benefit there. And also we are working with Ivy Tech and Southern Indiana Works on a collaborative effort to really help coordinate and explain workforce programming. So workforce, the challenge with workforce, as many of you know, nobody's in charge of all of it. So collaboration is the key, and we have a plan in place to move forward so that the River Ridge businesses can really benefit from the partnerships that we're developing. That is the conclusion of my report. Any questions?
Any questions for Wendy? Looks like congratulations are also in order for Mr. Ace for receiving the honorary degree for Associate of Science, College Community Service. So congratulations to you as well. Always nice to have our staff recognized for a variety of things. Business development and real estate, Mr. Stady.
Good afternoon. Much of my report was discussed during the executive session. Currently, we're managing 39 distinct projects, and we've been shortlisted on 6 of them. We have hosted this year at River Ridge 11 site visits, and we have an additional one tomorrow, so that will be 12 as of the end of the week. I'd like to turn just a little bit more to the travel schedule. I've got a lot of different conferences and trips coming up on behalf of River Ridge and then also the South Central Indiana group. I've really made an effort this year to hit some of the conferences I didn't get to last year for various scheduling reasons. Here in June, I'll be at the Indiana Power Partnership, which is hosted by Consultants Connect, and it's an opportunity to meet with most of the Midwestern site consultants on a one-on-one basis even. So it'll be 2 days in Chicago, followed by 4 days out in the state of Washington for the IDC Future Forum. And then I'll head to Atlanta in August for the Transatlantic Business and Investment Conference, which is mostly focused on European consultants and European companies looking to invest within the United States. And then this week, I think Wendy as well, we're headed up to Indianapolis for the Indiana 2024 Global Summit. So there's a lot, we're getting out there quite a bit here in the next few weeks. I'm excited about some of the travel, getting some face-to-face time with a little bit different group of site selectors than we did last year.
Any questions for Mr. Stady? Thank you.
Thank you.
Written reports are received from other supporting staff reports. Were there any questions from those that need to be addressed? Hearing none. I believe we have a presentation on our insurance renewal package from Mr. Pearl.
Appreciate Bill Barrett here with us once again, and he spent some time with Greg Piper, our staff attorney, and maybe some others I'm not necessarily aware of. But this is seems like it's coming around more than just once a year.
Yeah, time flies, especially when you're dealing with necessary evil insurance. So,
Thank you for being here.
Dr. Hodges and gentlemen, thank you for your business. We also thank you for the good cooperation we get from your staff on getting us all the underwriting information we need to do battle with the insurance companies on your behalf. They're first class of bunch that you have. They're a pleasure to work with. My colleague Steve Lee's unable to be here today. One of his sons has had a medical emergency, so he and his wife are going out to California to be with him. Once he'd be with here as well. This presentation will not include some lines of coverage, specifically your crime insurance, because we got you a 3-year policy with Travelers that doesn't expire until next year. It will also not include your directors and officers liability, your employment practices liability, your fiduciary liability, and your employee lawyer's professional liability for Tech Regs assets. Because we got you another 3-year policy last year with Cincinnati Insurance that doesn't expire until 2026. And then your pollution liability insurance with Great American is on a 5-year policy. It's going to expire in September. So we're already heavily marketing that. We'll be back in the August board meeting to present the options for that. I would liken the state of the insurance market kind of like what our national market is like for inflation. It's better than last year, but it's not still where we like it. So the rate increases are still the norm for every line of coverage with the exception of workers' compensation. The main problem children are property insurance due to all the increase in frequency and severity of natural disasters. Automobile insurance, because that line of coverage just had an underwriting loss for the industry 11 out of the last 12 years. Last year was another bad year. Cyber risk is a problem, particularly with public entities, even though you all are best in class. A lot of underwriters still lump you together with all other public entities for that position. And then also, lastly, umbrellas. Any policies providing excess limits because of the great increase in what's called nuclear verdicts. And that's where verdicts are $10 million or more. That's been fueled by litigation funding, where private equity companies and even pension funds are investing in plaintiff attorney firms to litigate stronger, longer, and harder to get bigger settlements and bigger adjudicated awards. So part of the mix as well. I've already provided my 21-page state of market report, and then the U.S. Chamber of Commerce put out a report on nuclear verdicts. So those have already been provided. Marathon Strategies has just come out with a 61-page report on thermonuclear verdicts. Those are verdicts over 100 million. I haven't provided that yet, but if you all are interested in any of those, we can get them to you. What I'm going to pass out now is the summaries of the renewal presentation. On the left-hand side, we're not going to go over that now, that's for your fun reading later on. What it will show are all of my lines of coverage, how heavily your councilman shopped over the years. It will first show who your current carriers are, and then it will show who your previous carriers were. And the previous carriers will be in that position either because they not renewed this, or they just got flat out beat by either incumbent or someone else. And you'll typically see a very long list of carriers who've had an opportunity to compete for our business and either decline or were not competitive. So if you go to the right-hand side and pull out this packet that looks like this. First couple of pages of my executive summary, we can skip over that to read at your convenience. I do try to list pages 4 and 5, every risk area I can think of for where we don't have an insurance safety net now. Some of that's very exotic stuff. But if any time you wanted to shop to get options for your consideration, we can do that. If we go to page 6, this will be for your lines of coverage, the traditional lines of coverage. You can see in the middle, we shopped it again this year to 3 additional carriers, all of whom were bust. So Travelers is going to be our option. Left-hand columns, this is what we were paying for the current policy period. And then on the right-hand columns, what we'll be paying for the renewal period. Property and premiums up just a little bit, as you can see. The inland marine not only includes all your contractor's equipment, but also our 2 elevated water tanks. And if you look at the bottom left-hand side, you'll see in the last several years, we've paid out over almost $278,000 worth of damages to our contractor's equipment. So it would take an insurance company about 14 years to recoup those losses, and that doesn't include their expenses. General liability, our biggest line, was driving that primarily overwhelmingly. 92% of that premium is coming from our vicarious liability for all of the construction and demolition work that goes on in the park, as well as our waterworks system. Even though the underwriters always want to know what our waterworks sales are going to be, they still charge the premium on our waterworks payroll. So that number is lesser since we outsource so much of that work to first-class global water company. Automobile is up, as I mentioned, due to what's going on. Just quickly, as from a perspective standpoint, if you want to pass this out, this shows what average auto premiums are by certain types of vehicles, but more importantly, what the average annual premium is nationally in Indiana and in Kentucky. But as you'll see, those premiums contemplate not only full coverage for comprehensive and collision, but it only contemplates a limit of $100,000 bodily injury per person, $300,000 per accident, and $110,000 for property damage. Well, your limit is $1 million per accident, and a much higher coverage that we would find with commercial insurance. So from a perspective standpoint, we still think that even with the auto increase in there, it's still a very good renewal. Umbrella, as you mentioned before, candidly, with the way the market is right now, I'm very pleased with that renewal premium because we're seeing dramatic increases on a lot of umbrellas because of, again, the nuclear verdicts that have been going on. Workers' compensation, you'll see is down a little bit. That's the one line of business that's making money for the insurance industry. And if we could go over quickly to page 8, you'll see we did get one coverage improvement on the property insurance at no cost. We now have a $25,000 supplement for contract penalties. And I think Greg thought that was a good nut. We do one reduction we've been seeing, which I don't see as a big deal for the general liability, but the forever pollutant, PFAS, big issue with the insurance market these days, so virtually every liability carrier we see is attaching that exclusion. It remains to be seen if that will be attached on your pollution policy when it comes up for renewal. We'll try our best to keep that off, but I can't make any guarantees that that will be the case. That's the case for your, what I'll call your standard lines of coverage. Are there any questions or concerns about that part? If not, let's go to page 9, which is our cyber risk insurance. And you'll see we went to 3 markets that had previously not seen your accounting for. All those were bust. Your incumbent carrier, Corvus, is actually a managing general underwriter that was holding the pen for the underwriting pen for the accredited specialty insurance company. A few months ago, they were acquired by Travelers, And so that brings them to a much stronger paper, much stronger financials. Creative was A- rated, meaning excellent, but their net worth was only between 250 million and 500 million. Travelers has the highest rating possible, a double plus superior, and Travelers has about 25 billion in net worth. So we think that helped us a little bit. You'll see there's two quotes. The one quote, which is the quote A, is at your current deductible of $15,000. And then we got if you wanted to go with a bit of a higher deductible for a premium reduction at 25, that's $1,032 saving. I'm not sure that that's enough worth to have your deductible go up $10,000, but we wanted to get you that option, just in case. I think you would stay at the 15 if it were me. And then quickly, if you'll go over to page 9, you'll see several improvements that we got on the coverage at no additional cost. Was particularly pleased by getting the social engineering fraud, the cybercrime, and the invoice manipulation sublimits from $100,000 where it is right now to $250,000. Again, at that same renewal premium. Any questions on cyber risk? Page 11 then is our excess directors and officers liability, and that is a $10 million limit to protect the personal assets of the folks sitting at this table. As you recall, your primary D&O coverage with a $10 million limit does include coverage for the authority itself. And that limit is also shared with the employment practice liability. So, heaven forbid, if we were to have one or more claims that blew through the $10 million, and you folks are personally sued in that litigation, this $10 million limit is strictly to protect you and your personal assets. It only has 2 exclusions. So in the event if there was a D&O claim that was not covered on the primary, then it drops down to protect you folks for those exclusions would not be in the excess D&O coverage. It of course that's on top of your 3-year policy with Cincinnati Insurance. When the underwriters look at all the factors that they look at to come up with their premium, at the end of the day, behind the scenes, they will charge a rate typically times your assets. So when we look at the asset increase, this is basically to me the equivalent of about a 20% rate decrease, even though it's a flat rate agreement. And then lastly is our drone liability. Incumbent is USAIG. We did shop it to AIG, who's a no-show. They're not quite the same company since we taxpayers bailed them out during the Great Recession back in 2007. And applied underwriters who entered the market since your last renewal, but they said they would only write a drone if you also had airplanes that they would insure. So the premium increase is only $145. And having a good pilot survey from Eric, I think certainly helped out on that because the underwriter was looking at a higher premium renewal charge prior to that. Questions, concerns, that's it.
I'm assuming the staff recommendation is that we stick with our $15,000 deductible on our cyber risk insurance packaging. Are there any other questions?
They need to approve signing those coverages within the next 30 days, as Mr. AC and myself have authority to do that. We'll get it with the recommendations that Mr. Harris has made.
I'll make that motion. We have a second? Second, Mr. Meyer. Any additional questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous.
So for clarity, we're staying at the $15,000 reduction in cyber risk.
Yes.
Good. We'll get these bound up.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, moving into our resolutions. We have resolution 19-2024, regulations for gateway lake use. This will be presented by Mr. Pfeiffer and Mr. Meyer. Have you done with them?
Yeah, if you recall, I think at our February meeting, we discussed having witnessed an incident where an adult and 2 children, during a period when the lake was frozen out here, showed up and took rocks, kind of self-tested the stability of the ice and then went ice skating. And so we didn't have any rules. I consulted with Mr. Paris. It was recommended that from an insurance standpoint, we would be in a stronger defense posture should an accident happen during something like that, if we have rules and regulations for the lake, the use of the lake. And so Tom had put together proposed signage, and I have taken those bullet points from the sign, and in section 1 of this resolution have fleshed them out as rules and regulations a little bit more clearly. And then in section 3, we have established civil penalties, not for violation of those rules, potentially that Mr. Acey or his designee could assess penalties up to the maximum allowed under Indiana law, which is $2,500 for a first offense and $7,500 for a second or subsequent offense. I don't anticipate assessing civil penalties, but I think it's appropriate to have it so that this has some teeth, and folks should respect it if staff has to go out there and say, hey, you're violating the use restrictions for the lake. We'd ask that you comply with our reasonable request, and that should minimize any problems, but we should adopt this by resolution. I would note there's a typo in the next to last whereas clause, where there's an extra 6 in the code citation for that statute, but I don't think that's material. I can work with Renee to change the final copy.
Mr. Meyer?
This is resolution number 19-2024 is a resolution adopting regulations for use of the Gateway Lake. It is filled out. I think Mr. Tucker did an excellent job with one correction that we'll have Renee take care of. That I'll make that one of the motion.
We have the motion, is there a second?
Second.
That one goes to Mr. Linford. Are there any other questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next up, we have Mr. Caruso, who's going to present resolution 20-2024 on video streaming equipment purchase.
Good afternoon. This resolution is, well, exactly that, to approve the purchase for video streaming equipment. The General Assembly has adopted IC 5-14-1.5 through 2.9, which requires governing bodies to live stream their public meetings commencing July 1st, 2025. The RRDA has received requests from the general public to start video streaming its public session and board meetings at the earliest possible or earliest practical date. Yeah. Staff sought and obtained a proposal in the amount of $21,988.92 for video streaming equipment and programming from American Sound and Electronics Incorporated, an integration consultant whose proposal is attached as Exhibit A in your packet. We've reviewed this. We've worked with the engineer and the operations staff at American Sound in the past, which is why we feel they're most qualified for this work. We present that for your consideration. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Caruso. I'll make the motion that we accept the staff recommendation, pass resolution number 20-2024 that engages American Sound and Electronics Inc. in the amount of $21,988.92. Authorize this purchase for live streaming our videos. For uploading our videos. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. McCauley. Are there any other questions for Michael on this? Hearing none, all.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Does this include the server storage for the videos?
No, we'll just, we plan to record first, and the recording, the actual space, it won't be that much space.
So first it'll be recording and uploading later, or we will get to the point where we're live streaming?
Correct, that is correct.
Okay, just kind of test it out and then you're live streaming at
Yes.
some point. Okay. Just want to make sure I understand. Are there any other questions for Mr. Caruso? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous, thank you. Mr. Lauer, I have you as the staff presenting our resolution 21-2024 on the State Road 62 and Jim Lewis intersection improvements. And Mr. Linford, I think
Good afternoon. I think Mark kind of gave you a good description of what this project was during his report, but
This will serve as a entrance off of State Road 62 for EA Inc., Carrizo, and any other future developments in that area. Like you said, it's a green T intersection. The southbound movement on 62 will be free of the traffic signal, free flowing, and then the left-hand turns will be signalized. This will be funded with the 2024 ban. And we opened 2 bids for this project. The most responsive and responsible and cost-effective bid was from Dan Christiani Excavating Company Incorporated with an amount of $2,293,769. With that, we ask for your consideration to award this project to Dan Christiani.
Thank you. Mr. Linder?
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 21-2024, approving the award of the 62 inch Lewis intersection improvements to Dane Christiani Excavating in the amount of $2,293,769.
We have the motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ballinger. Are there any questions?
Were 2 bids? Did you expect more than 2 bids for this?
I'm not sure how many we would typically expect. Usually it's more than 2, yes, but we are ramping up in construction season, so it's a bit busier time of year for everyone. So I don't think it's, I don't know what the word would be, but I think we're happy with the prices that we got, so.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Mr. Benito, I need to present resolution 23-2024, mulch spreader.
22.
Sorry, 22. I don't know why I'm jumping in today.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. This resolution is for the purchase of a mulch spreader. And the rationale behind purchasing this mulch spreader is because of the vast quantities of tree mulch that we currently have piled up on the north end of the site. As you all know, when the Army left here some years ago, they stopped mowing, so we had a tremendous amount of vegetation that took off. And in order for us to effectively market this site and develop it, we need to get out there and take down the vegetation, which we have been focused on here in earnest for the last several years. With that, we have literally hundreds of piles of mulch up on the north end, and we have explored a number of different options in spreading it, and all of which are really ineffective. So the outside personnel took it upon themselves with our permission, to go out and look for options in order to effectively spread this mulch out. And they came across which essentially is like a bionic mulch spreader, for lack of a better term. We have tested and determined it to be very effective, and I would encourage anyone to go out there and just to take a look at this thing in operation. It is impressive, and it has saved us a great deal of time. With that, we solicited and we received only 2 prices for mulch spreaders, and the lowest, most responsible bid was by Laker Farm Implement Service in the amount of $56,000. Funding source for this purchase will be TIF funds, and it is our recommendation to move forward with the purchase of this piece of equipment. It has saved us dollars already. With that, I present to the board for consideration.
Mr. Linder?
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 22-2024 for the purchase of a mulch spreader from Laker Farm Implement Service for $56,000.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCollum. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. And I believe you're down for number 23, the replacement of the RRCC development standards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, with our development standards, we periodically need to go in and update those just to keep in compliance with changing market conditions. And also in an effort to make them just as efficient as possible for those that are utilizing these development standards in order to purchase and develop a piece of property. The biggest change in this current set of development standards is that we pulled the permitted uses and land use types from the CCRs and moved them over into the development standards, so you had a cleaner cut between those 2 documents. With that also, we pulled the tier maps from the CCRs and moved those over to the development standards. Again, in an effort just to make it more streamlined and more efficient for guys to do business out here. I also added a little bit of language in there regarding landscape, which I'll just paraphrase, is to put 5 shrubs into one tree in every landscape aisle. And that is essentially summarizes the entire set of changes. So with that, it is staff recommendation to move forward with these updated development standards and present them now for board consideration.
Mr. McCollum?
Make the motion to approve resolution 23-2024 to approve and adopt the updated development standards effective immediately upon adoption of this resolution.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Meyer. Any questions?
Greg, you look at some of this.
Yes. Mark and I participated in putting this together, so we're comfortable that it's a more user-friendly document than what we had before.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Vito, once again, present resolution 24-2024 on the P&D demolition.
This last resolution is for change order number 1 associated with the 2-year phase 7 demolition project. With every demolition project that you have out there, you have to have what's called an ACM survey. Some people call it a hazardous material survey. On this particular project, we had a partial asbestos survey on the majority of the buildings up there, but not on buildings that were down closer to Lindsay Creek, or excuse me, Jenny Run. During the development of the documents, it's also the same time the project core was coming around and we were looking at a total take of all the property. So at that point in time, we elected to, okay, let's go ahead and add these buildings in as well. Knowing that we were going to require the contractor to go out there and perform this additional ACM survey to cover those as part of the state regulations. So once they had gone through and performed the survey, they did indeed discover additional asbestos material within those structures that were added to the contract, but also within some of the existing structures that had already been surveyed. After negotiating with River Ridge staff, Innovative did submit a change order in the amount of $200,000 to abate and remove the additional ACM. And it is our recommendation to proceed with this change order, as it is in our opinion, the best possible way to move forward with getting the buildings down and to wisely steward the River Ridge money. With that, I present to the board for consideration.
Mr. McCollum?
I make a motion to approve resolution 24-2024 to accept the P&E area phase 7 demolition contract change order number 1 in the amount of $200,000.
I'll second that. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Griffith. And Mr. Hildebrand, I'd like you back up to present resolution 25-2024 on the water treatment phase 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've, I talked earlier about the current water treatment project improvements that are occurring right now. We're just about to wrap up. Just to give a little bit of a timeline to everyone. We really started talking about this with the state of Indiana, the one that's ongoing now in 2019, early 2019. So we're basically 5 years into those discussions for this occurring. We have some significant water users that are moving in, mainly Canadian Solar, that is going. We just heard recently that they are actually increasing the amount of water that they're using for their current first phase of development. So we began thinking that it was time that we needed to have a discussion with DNR about the next phase of water treatment. And because of the state agency and everything, we had great partnership with those folks, the folks with DNR, Ron Miller in particular, who is head of their water division. But things just don't move very quickly. And our concern is that we would get ourselves into a pinch with projects moving forward if we didn't start moving forward with additional capacity. We think that it's gonna take about 2 years from start to finish to get this done. Again, part of the reason that it's taking so long on the current phase is because it was right in the middle of COVID, and then everything associated with COVID and the aftermath with equipment and electrical equipment and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit different than normal, but we thought it was best to start trying to take our destiny in our own hands and get this water treatment project moving forward. We have had discussions with DNR, and the approval of this contract today is contingent on us getting a full approval to continue to move forward with DNR. I just wanted to try to get it in front of the board as quickly as possible because at this point we're looking at probably late 2026 or so before this is gonna get done in construction. So the plan is essentially to do the same thing we did what we have down there now, increase our capacity by an additional 6 million gallons a day. We're gonna add 3 wells. There are 4 wells down there currently. There's 8 million of capacity in the wells, so we have an extra 2 million down there. So we're gonna add an additional 6 million in capacity of wells, and then the filter units and the high service pumps and everything that are gonna be very similar to what we have right now. We have worked for many years now with HWC Engineering on our water system, and I worked actually with the Louisville Water Company here at the beginning of this because of their expertise as well to give recommendations for potential consultants to do this work with all the work that they have going on across the river, and they have a great working relationship with HWC as well. So we thought it was a great fit for HWC to do this work. One other thing that we talked about with the contingency of DNR, another thing that we are pursuing is potential funding, whether it be through DNR or some other way. So HWC will also be doing a preliminary engineering report in the format that can be used for SRF funding or other state funding or any kind, different types of funding for a potential for us to get this either reimbursed or find a way to fund this not completely by River Ridge funds. So they are going to do the complete scope of services for this, the design, permitting, geotechnical testing, bidding, construction administration, and then some post-construction startup services. It also includes electrical work, which is done by an outside consultant, and integration with our SCADA system with a consultant that we currently work with that's going to be included as part of that work. It's the plan to use the 2024 bands to pay for this engineering work. And HWC has submitted a proposal that you can see here. It's an $829,900 contract on a lump sum for the engineering report, design, and permitting, and then hourly not to exceed $320,000 for the geotech, bidding, construction administration, and then the post-construction startup services for a total of $1,149,900. I request board consideration for resolution number 25/2024.
Thank you. Mr. Ballard?
I move that we approve resolution 25/2024, approving the River Ridge Commerce Center Water Treatment Phase 3 consultant contract to HWC Engineering at the proposed lump sum not to exceed $829,900 and a $320,000 contract not to exceed that for geotechnical testing, bidding, construction, and post-construction startup services.
I'll second with the question, what's the estimated cost of construction?
We're thinking it's going to be in the range of about $15 to $20 million for construction. It's a little, we obviously know what it's cost the state to do what they've done now. They've done a little bit more, but obviously we're 10 years plus from the original phase and then a couple years from the other second phase. So we think it's going to be in that range. And again, I've worked very closely with Louisville Water Company, and they've been a great asset and a great providing information for this work. So
We have a better idea of likelihood or progress of communication about a reimbursement before this contract comes back before us for the construction.
So the plan is to have the design completed by the end of the year so we can get it out to bid. The first part of that is the preliminary engineering report that will also include a cost estimate. So we will have the cost of it, and then we'll be working in that entire time. And of course, Jerry will be heavily involved with that as well through the state and everywhere else. But yes, I think by the time we get ready for construction with this, we'll have a better idea if we're gonna have to go at it alone or if we're gonna have, funding from outside sources.
I've had conversations with the Indiana Finance Authority about possibly utilizing the state revolving fund to finance the project. That's one of the things that resulted in the delay on the current project is DNR has no funds in its budget to fund the improvements that they're obligated to make here for additional capacity. So they had to go hunting for that. They basically got grant funds from IFA that I'm advised they're no longer eligible for. So probably us taking the ball and running with it to get an SRF loan is gonna be much quicker than it is for DNR to try to do that when they don't have any money in the budget to fund that loan. So, we're trying to bring all those pieces together. Yes, well, once we get to PER and I can go sit down with IFA, we should be able to get a decision about reimbursement or the extent to which we can receive reimbursement.
And then another reason for the speed that, we're proceeding is these big projects coming online with big users. By the time they ramp up to what they're predicting their usage to be, we would be down to a very limited amount of capacity, even with this, capacity that's coming online now.
Other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And I believe you have the last one as well, resolution 26/2024.
Yeah, so this goes along with, the resolution from earlier that the board approved, with State Road 62 and Jim Lewis intersection improvements. There's an existing gas main, that runs kind of through that intersection. There's actually a piece that kind of cuts off of that intersection and heads toward like DA Inc. now. That cuts through that development site 31B that's kind of at the south, east corner of that intersection, $5.47 to relocate that main. We have a reimbursement agreement. We had a copy of it. Greg's reviewed that as well already, and we had no changes to it. I will add that I did, with the ability of having the knowledge of all the projects, we also have a potential water main emergency connection with Indiana American in Charlestown that we're working on. And I went on and had them relocate a little bit more gas main because we were gonna have a conflict with that project too. So the overlap, and that's what's been helpful for us, since Eric's been on board and me working with, I've got the big picture of things so we can try to do things more efficiently. So that's been helpful as well. We're planning to pay for this work out of the 2024 bans. I will mention, Greg brought this up as a comment, it does say in the reimbursement agreement that it's an estimated amount of $153,955.47. Typically they come in less, typically they're on the high end, so we will not write a check to them until they're finished with the work. So this is just to get this agreement rolling and get that gas main relocated so we can move full steam ahead on the road project. So I would request board consideration for resolution 26/2024.
Mr. Dodge.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 26/2024, which approves the reimbursement agreement for the relocation of a natural gas main required for the State Road 62 and Jim Lewis Avenue intersection improvements project for Center Point Energy for the listed amount of $152,955, and the all important 47 cents.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCauley. I do know that it says a not to exceed payment, so I'm assuming that it's higher, you will of course bring it back.
Yes, well, there will obviously be a claim made that the board would have to approve, so I can at least advise the board if it does come back any different than what the original agreement said.
We need to be able to assure them that we have guaranteed funding their estimates out. If it's more than that, they'll have to come back.
All right, are there any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. will give us our controller's report. Congratulations again on your.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The usual reports were presented in the preliminary package. I Claims this month are in the amount of $1,845,361.05. We do have a little bit of a reallocation of TIF versus operating funds. The spreader that was just approved is a TIF disbursement. So our use of TIF restricted funds this month is $1,165,506.60, with operating funds being used in the amount of $659,157.80. Both of those are coming out of the same bank account, so that's a little switch we can make easily. And your present claims are presented for your review and approval.
Do we have a motion to accept claims?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Meyer, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boucher, are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Mr. Piper, any report from you?
I have a written report. I did have a question before I made it into the room this afternoon. Did we hold a UEA meeting and adopt this resolution?
We did.
Okay. Very good, that's all I have.
At this time, are there any other comments from members of the board? Staff? Any comments from members of our gallery? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Meyer. Take a second. Second by Mr. McCall. I'm gonna stay here all day. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.